Okay? Now remember, you're the author. You're the creator of your story. No one else. And it's important. It's important for you to know about the people, the moments, the events, and the places that have shaped you, because at the end of the day, these people, moments, events, and places, they help us become more aware. And they help us learn how to make good choices, how to make good decisions, how to act and manage ourselves in difficult or uncertain or unfamiliar situations. Now, whether we have the language for it or not, each of us actually has a leading role, a starring role in our own life story, right? We're the main character. We're the protagonist, right? And every day we are serving someone in some way. And every day we have choices to make, decisions to make, challenges to face. Every day we learn from our choices, our decisions, our challenges. And by telling the story about those choices and decisions and challenges, we actually can provide a lift for other people. We can inspire them as we share our own experiences, our own life lessons, and the wisdom that we have gained. That's the power. That's really the true power of stories. Now, rather than talking about what we care about as some vague, abstract principle, we actually share what we care about as our actual lived experience. And that's what really moves people. That's what touches other people's hearts. That's what connects us to them and to our shared humanity. So, as you think about your own story, you want to be as specific as possible, okay? You want to be sure to include details about a particular person or place or moment. Now, when I think about one of my own favorite teachers, I can actually see her. I can picture her, right? Standing in front of my class, in front of my 6th grade classroom. I can see the room. I can see the desks, right? I can see all the books on the wall. I can remember my teacher, her hair, her hairstyle, the color of her eyes, how they sparkled, how the edges around the outside corners kind of crinkled up when she smiled. I can even remember her clothes, the colors, the textures, the shoes she wore, right? I remember the rhythm of her voice, the way she held a pencil as she graded our papers, how she would sometimes put the pencil right there behind her right ear. Now, all of these details bring the memory back to me, okay? It brings her back in full presence, right? And I can just see her so vividly. I can almost just kind of reach out and touch her. And that's how it works. And the same thing will be true for you. The more you can recall, the more specific your details, the more you will have to share and to communicate. And the more power your story will have to connect with others. Now, when you craft and polish your story, you actually won't be communicating the whole of the story that you write down, right? Because who wants to hear that kind of story, right? So you're not going to actually share all of the details with somebody else. Like all of those details that I shared with you about my teacher, no, you're not going to say all of those things, right? But those details actually provide the emotional element, the emotional fuel that packs a punch when you actually share the story with someone else. Now, another thing that's important about diving into the details, the more specific you are in those details, the more universal your story becomes. Now, let me say that again because it's kind of a paradox. The more specific you are in the details, the more universal your story becomes, right? It's actually in the specificity of those details. That's where the universal lives. That's where the universal connection is actually made. And that's what gives our stories the power to connect with and engage with others. So, as you reflect on the details of your story, write them down. One of my wonderful mentors used to say, write it all down. write it all down, right? And when you actually share your story with others, many of those details will live only in your heart, in the memory of your heart. Yet the emotional impact will be there in your voice in terms of what you choose to share. Now, if you're like me, or if you're like I used to be, before I made a big shift in my own life, if you're like I used to be, you might be thinking, who's going to be interested in my story? I mean, my story doesn't really matter, does it? Well, I know it sounds crazy, but I used to actually think that my story didn't matter. Yes, I did, but not anymore. Today, I make my living telling my own story as well as telling other people's stories. But if that's you, I totally get it. I totally understand. If you're thinking that your story couldn't possibly matter, that other people just simply aren't interested in you, that you shouldn't be talking about yourself, can I just tell you something? Get over it. That's right. Get over it. Why? Now listen up. This is really important. Because there is somebody out there. In fact, there are many, many somebodies out there who need to hear your story. In fact, their very life might depend on hearing your story. Now, I'm not talking about your life story. I'm talking about a moment, okay, a significant moment or event or person in your life. That's the kind of story I'm talking about. There are many, many people out there who will only be able to hear you. They will only be able to hear your voice, your story. Now, I can speak to them. Other people can speak to them. I can share my story. They can share theirs. But they won't hear us. They'll listen perhaps, but they won't really hear me or somebody else. But they will hear you. They will hear your story because they need whatever it is you have to offer. Now, you've heard me say this many, many times before, so this is a reminder. In many cultures throughout the world, stories are considered as medicine. That's right. Stories are thought of and actually revered as medicine because they heal, right? They have the power to heal us, to make us whole. Another reason is because stories help ground us, okay? And the medicine is what helps to do that. When we lose our way, as we often do in our hectic, fast-paced world, stories help us. They help us come back home. They help us to come back home to who we are, to realign with who we are, to come back into harmony with who we are and whose we are, with who we belong to, right? Now, that's so good. Stories are medicine. Now, stories have presence, they have potency, and they have power in our lives. And when we share our story, they have presence and potency and power for others. So when we share our story, we can actually help ourselves and others make sense of their world. That's right. Because stories help us chart and navigate the many, many waters of our lives. They help us as we move through the moments, the hours, the days of our lives. For some of us, stories are like a light in the darkness. A story, your story, can provide that particular light that somebody else needs to get from here to there, from wherever they are right now, whatever their circumstances happens to be, whatever their state of mind happens to be, it can get them from here to there. Now, I've mentioned throughout the podcasts of other people's stories that stories are not only powerful medicine, but it's like a small dose. It's a small dose of what matters in our life. And it's in the telling. It's in the telling of these stories, our stories, that's so important, right? Because the telling is what releases the medicine. The telling is what soothes our pain or shares and amplifies our joy. I just love that. Telling your story releases a powerful energy, a powerful presence, powerful medicine for someone else. You may not even know that person's name, right? In the Kiswahili language, the words habari gani mean, what's the news? What's happening now? So guess what? When you tell your story, when you start writing it down, think about, how might I share a small dose of what's happening now? How might I share that small dose of what matters with somebody else who needs to hear my voice, my story? Because when you do, you actually make a difference. You make a difference in your own life, and you make a difference in someone else's life. When you share that small dose of what matters, you leave the world a little bit better off than it is right now. As you give voice to your own story, you're actually drawing from that deep wellspring and transformative power of your own true voice. You are offering the medicine of your own true voice, providing food for the hungry and water for the thirsty. You are faithfully serving others by lighting the path for somebody else, by making a difference for someone else. Now, I would love to hear your story. I would love to know how you're making a difference. I want to know how you are wearing your soul on the outside, how you're stepping into the life that God has designed and planned just for you. In a few moments, I'll tell you where you can send your story. Okay? Remember this. You were made for joy. You were made for service. You were made to stand in the amazing power of your own true voice. That's what daring to wear your soul on the outside is all about. Now, if you would like to share your story with me, okay, and I'm not talking about your life story now, I'm talking about one of those moments or one of those people in your life or an event or circumstances that really has made an impact on you, if you'd like to share that story with me, please do. And send it to me at this email address. It's really simple. It's Gloria@gloriaburgess.com. That's it. Gloria@gloriaburgess.com. GloriaBurgess.com. And in the subject line, put these words, my turn. Okay? So in your subject line, in your email, put these words, my turn, my turn. Okay? So, if you'd like to share your story not only with me, but you'd like to have me consider it to share on this podcast, let me know that as well, because I'm going to need your permission to do that, right? So if you think you have a wonderful story and you'd like to say, oh, Dr. Gloria, would you, consider putting my story on one of your podcasts? Of course. I'll certainly consider that, right? But you have to give me permission to do that, okay? So say that to me in your email. You have my permission, Gloria. Okay? Pretty easy, right? I look forward to hearing from you soon. So, it really is your turn, right? I'm so glad that you will be claiming and writing your own story, because when you do, you're taking charge. You're taking authority, right? And if somebody else hears about events or people or moments or circumstances in your life, guess what? They're going to tell your story. You don't want them telling your story. You want to tell your story, right? You want to stand up and declare yourself. Because when we do that, we say, I am. I'm here. I am. We declare ourselves boldly and with rejoicing. We declare ourselves lifting up and celebrating the awesome, incredible power of the voice that God gave us. And you know what? That's